Lutemu has.
And just to finish up on that point, obviously for the Chinese players, they have their own system, but KaiZ, which is the KZG you're looking at as the front of Xiaobai's name, they are a new team this year in the Gold Team Championship. And so getting your first sort of showing in a Masters Tour and one of your players reaches at least the semi-final with power to add to that, that's a great start for them. They're not a new org, they've got StarCraft teams and such like, but they are new to the Hearthstone scene, so rather a nice welcome for them here.
Yeah, glad that you had that tidbit of info, because now we can draw a comparison to Xiaobai to some of the other breakout performances from Masters Tours last year. Bank Yugi always comes to mind, that Cinderella story of qualifying straight through to Grandmasters and then making it to Worlds. But outside of that, in speaking of great starts, Xiaobai has quite a nice opening curve with the Pharaoh Cat into Evil Miscreant, but Turna picks up one of the best outcomes from his first day of school in that Wand Thief. Maybe the Timberwolf, not so great though.
Yeah, you take it on balance though. You'll take the bad one and the good one, I think, because there's a lot of mediocre one drops. There are one or two completely busted ones, and I think Wand Thief counts in that category. He didn't get anything particularly great, but showing what this matchup is about, taking Ray off Frost is just controlling that early game.
Yeah, Ray of Frost can be very clutch to just delay a questing, say 1 turn before your Libram of Justice is active. And it so happens that those cards are in hand, and Xiaobai does have the questing Adventurer. And thankfully for Turna, he held onto that Salad's Pride in the mulligan, so he has stuff to do in the mid game while he accumulates these resources, kind of bracing for the storm, which Rogue tends to put out around turn 4, turn 5.
Yeah, and that's one of the things with this Rogue deck. We're so used to seeing the stealth Rogue, the more violent version. This one just takes its time, and like you say, then the storm unleashes upon you. It looks like you're not really going very far, and then suddenly you just draw a million cards and do a million minions, and that's a lot of minions.
Xiaobai starting with the Faceless Lackey. It's a good time point to fit in the Dagger, because Dagger can be, pretty proficient against Paladin. Just if you line up the hero powers, every one rogue hero power can deal with 2 from the Paladin. Right. On top of the fact that the Paladin is running Salad's Pride packages, so it's a lot of minions that are fragile and die to the Dagger. So Xiaobai finding a window to be able to equip that in the near future is quite nice, because the alternative was Candle Taker, which didn't particularly line up well with the trades, I would say.
Yeah, and 2 mana in both of these decks for a hero power is a lot. So getting some usage out of it is a massive deal, because the value isn't really that important anymore, because both sides have infinite cards. But the tempo it gives you by just sitting there and effectively being another 1 attack minion until it can't be removed is so useful.
And tempo is exactly Turna's problem here. He has no shortage of value because of all that card draw he got from the Salad's Pride, but he doesn't have the most efficient way of fighting back on the board here. Looks like he's gonna start off with the Penflinger train, and he can freeze just to get the Penflinger back. It's not the greatest use of the freeze, but combined with second Penflinger, he is just going to get rid of the board. It's expensive though, not gonna lie. That's the entire turn just to give Xiaobai back initiative.
Yeah, it's really irritating. You spend your whole turn doing all that good stuff, and then your opponent just goes, okay, here's some more, do it again. And you're well aware, if you're in Xiaobai's situation, what this means. It means that your opponent has a really clunky hand, and you need to get on with it before that hand unclunks.
And I think what you said just there, combined with the top deck of the Questing Adventurer, lets Xiaobai know that, hey, questing empty board, even if it's just a 3-3, there's a good chance that this is going to stick, because it was so tough for Turna to deal with just a singular 2-3 last turn. And he gets some interesting choices off the Ethereal Lackey. I was looking at Ambush there, but maybe it's not quite easy enough to time. Like, I was thinking, is there a way you can set up Ambush to deal with when your opponent's big threats come down? But the biggest threat is not actually a minion played, it's a spell that generates a minion in the Libram of Hope. So maybe the Ambush is a little too far in the future. Dragon's Horde fits next turn with questing and Nitro boost, so I think it's a fine pick there. Turna gonna pull the trigger on the first Libram of Justice, and it's super expensive.
I am curious to see how he goes about this next couple of turns, because you want to questing into Secret Passage. But to do that, you don't necessarily do it immediately. You want to make it so you get a monstrous questing. You've seen the Libram play now, so you can hope that your questing won't be blown up by a Barov or similar. Obviously, we see that Turna has now got that Barov, but he'll want to get this sooner rather than later to try and avoid that possibility happening.
Yeah. This is a tough turn for Turna because we could see a very aggressive Barov use here to get rid of the Ogre Mancer. The problem is I would really want to Argent Braggart here if I were Turna, but if I'm going to Barov, it just doesn't work out no matter what order you play it in. And so we could just see Barov and Penflinger instead.
I'm excited to see how much this Ogre Mancer's done. It's not that common in the deck, and it's lured out a Barov. And now Xiaobai is going to have a lovely questing backstab plus some other stuff set up.
Oh, yes.
And that's all because of the Ogre Mancer that might not have been there. That could have just been a whirl kick, and a whirl kick right now would just not be that helpful.
Turna just hasn't hit any of his Libram discounters, and it's been really tough to get the Blessings of Wisdom to land on anything without Crab Rider. So it's been quite an inefficient use of his most efficient board wiping resources like the Barov and the first Libram of Justice, but he kind of had to, especially since he had the second Libram of Justice in hand. Now Xiaobai, I definitely think the backstab is in business here. Whether you go questing backstab or backstab kill Barov into questing, you get the same health total on the questing. It's just the attack difference that matters. So order is slightly significant here.
Going to go for it now. He's getting a little short of time if he's going to Passage, so I assume he's not intending to do that.
I would agree. Looks like he's just going for the Candle Taker. He's seen a lot of resources expended to deal with even low health questing, so I think he is fine just with a relatively small questing here. It's going to be expensive for Turna to deal with it one way or another, and for Turna, thankfully, he picks up a first Libram discounter, but it is coming at a point where there's a questing on the board.
Yeah, and this questing is going to take over the game so fast with how the Rogue works right now. There's so much zero mana stuff going on. There's so much card draw, and it all works together so beautifully. Yeah, you've got to kill this, or next turn you're looking at a 10 attack minion.
Yeah. I think we could see Flinger or Braggart first, and then Flinger Blessing on the Argent, and then Flinger again, and then swing into the questing, and then Libram on the Braggart. So you kind of waste the usages of the Blessing because you expect the Argent to die immediately. But the upside of this is that he cheapens his Devout Pupil.
I wonder if he Blessings his own minion or the opposing minion here.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's actually smart because otherwise it would be super easy for Xiaobai to just take the trade here. Good spot.
So now he gets another card out of this, even though it's on the smaller minion and it's not under his control.
I think this flick will be earmarked for either Devout Pupil or Aldor Truthseeker. So let's see what's in the box. Inara Storm Crash is pretty fun for a rogue.
Ooh.
The Envoy is also tempting. Man.
Kane is also tempting.
Yeah, the Kane, when going over the top for lethal, is a nice thing to have in your back pocket, say when a Libram of Hope comes down. But I think Xiaobai's priority here should be instead continuing his board development, which I would prefer to get stats on the board. Oh, but he disagrees. All right.
Well, he kind of agrees because this is he's not using it as a closer. He's using it as stats on the board, which is allowing him to eviscerate.
I see.
So he does actually agree with you, but not in the way that maybe you first thought.
Right. I mean, my head was going somewhere like Inara and then Prize Plunder, and then you do have to give the card draw by trading the Candle Taker, but kind of thought that was worth it for the amount of tempo he gains. But you can clearly see everybody loves starving Paladin of draws where they can. Turna finally finds a window to play a Libram discounter, and that means the Penflinger train can begin.
It can. But it's not a taunt minion currently. Well, it is technically a taunt minion, but it's not really doing a very good job of it right now.
True. Turna has to be careful with his health total because he doesn't have the Libram of Hope in hand just yet. But because this is Kayn, it's not like he can just say devout pupil, deal with it. Xiaobai can pretty handily ignore that. So I do think it has to be at least a partial Penflinger turn.
Yeah, and he is going to fling some more pens.
Yeah, it looks like one Penflinger is just going to end up naked on the board.
Do you flick it? Surely you don't. It's too much, right?
Too much what? You mean?
Just like you're giving up the flick is so much better killing other things later or even right now, but flicking the Penflinger just gets rid of so much removal.
Oh, you meant the Penflinger. I was definitely looking at flicking the Aldor.
Yeah, the Aldor makes the most sense. That's what a logical human being would think, but getting rid of all of the Penflingers for all of the game is something you've got to consider.
True, it is a consideration, but obviously the big downside of that is you are losing on board. And I feel that Xiaobai's game plan is very much try to just kill Turna as soon as possible. He is down to half his health. He can still dagger away one flinger, and it's kind of a win already that you've deleted. You forced them to use one flinger individually. The only question is whether he starts cashing in this damage at the cost of giving Turna card draw, and he says no, which I'm kind of surprised by, honestly.
I am also surprised, but maybe he realizes, especially now he has used his flick with no Shadow Step or anything, like if an 8-8 hits the board, then it's all undone. And I think he realizes that it is not in hand right now. So why give Turner the chance to get the hope?
True. I mean, the reason is if it's not hope, you set up a 2-turn lethal given the Nitro boost poison in hand, I believe. But maybe Xiaobai didn't feel like this Penflinger, or rather his Candle Taker was that sturdy, which to be fair, it has a very low health total on it. And while Xiaobai has starved Turna of card draw as much as he could, that Crab Rider is pretty much making up for all the card draw the Candle Taker would have given.
Yeah, I was saying this yesterday because I learned this meta sort of after Crab Rider had become basically established, and I can't believe there was a time when people thought it wasn't good. I know there was, but it's like, this does not compute.
I honestly don't know who those people are other than exactly Crane, but I get what you mean for sure.
Yeah, exactly Crane. He had a really good tournament this time around. Good to see Crane back doing well competitively.
Yeah.
But this is not his moment. This is Xiaobai's moment.
Yeah, time for the passage. The rest of his hand was just not doing very much. This Devout Pupil is stacked. Xiaobai needs kind of one Thief, I would say, to deal with this. Or a big, big Prize Plunderer. Okay, these are great results, though.
Yeah, it's kicking off in Xiaobai land.
Okay, here's the one Thief. Even a freeze would be welcome here. That's a quick missiles. This is a pretty good shaped board for missiles to get rid of the shield and the annoying thing. Oh my goodness, Polymorph, hello! That's insane!
Yeah. And the missiles just go so beautifully with that as well.
Yeah, that's yikes for Turna. That is the worst card for him to see outside of, devolving missiles as well, which wasn't guaranteed to hit it, but the Polymorph just ruins Turna's dreams here. On the bright side, he has Libram of Judgment, but it's not corrupted from what I can see. Okay.
It will be now, yeah. I want to point out how good that turn was from Xiaobai. I remember the Team Liquid people playing in the Chinese league last year, and the amount of lag they get is noticeable. It's not ridiculous, it's not unplayable, but Xiaobai realized that was an option, and he got on with that turn really fast. Like the insta-pick on the missiles, for instance, is a nod to the fact he can lag out there because he's playing from China if he's not careful.
And you can see from Turna's facial expression and mannerisms that he knows he's on the back foot, even if he's managed to heal for now. The difference in resource availability is huge here. Turna gave up one Penflinger a couple turns ago, thinking that he was in a position where he can just try and starve the rogue of resources. And I think that was a very, very reasonable conclusion to come to at that point. But Xiaobai got not only one of the most insane passages in terms of card generation, just he also found the ideal answer to the devout pupil that Turna was kind of all in on. So from this point, it's going to be a simple matter for Xiaobai to deal with this board. Turna's best hope from here is a Lady Liadrin sooner rather than later.
This is going to be a tight squeeze into the time available as well. But it's going to be a lot of damage. He'll get all the important things in one way or the other, and there's going to be so much damage piling through now.
Fit in
all the commands
pretty much
queuing
everything.
Up.
Care to make a wager?
Yeah, that is impressive. Finding or choosing the Ray of Frost that quickly and identifying that he could use the spells in his hand to get rid of the taunt, push all the rest of the damage phase, perfect mana expenditure. He's going to fatigue soon, but it's not a big deal.
Yeah, and his 2-card hand is like 7 cards or something. Pharaoh Cat into Miscreant just keeps making this stuff.
True facts, very accurate. Penflinger can only be returned to the hand by a very lackluster Libram of Justice, but that 7-1 cannot be allowed to stick around.
Yeah, and this is kind of his, it's not his win condition going because Xiaobai is nearly out of stuff, but it's not ideal at all for Turna. As I believe he gets a coffee delivered.
On the bright side for Turna, it feels like Xiaobai is committed to never attacking with the Candle Taker until it's immediately lethal. So the Libram of Judgment with the Corrupt should be able to buy him a little bit more time. One more turn to try and find the Adrin.
Yep, and there's only 10 cards left, so it's a realistic hope in some worlds, but he knows there's a lot more damage coming in this turn. He might just die here, even with the 5.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's
I mean,
perfect.
Xiaobai only needs 2 damage, and this is, you're right, a 100-card hand.
Strike like the wind.
Yeah.
No Kobold yet. That's not lethal either. But, you know, it is a almost guaranteed 2-turn lethal setup. If Turna draws Libram of Hope off the top, is that going to be good enough to survive? I think it is, technically.
So he would have to do 23 plus Proc Shield.
Yeah.
Maybe it's enough, but even then it's going to be kind of tight.
Okay, so he hits the Whirl Kick, probably has to cash in the Penflinger, and at that point you kind of lose anyway, but name of the game is survive on board. Do the thinking later. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Just send it face.
Yeah, he's got to find a way to win the game as well, so
True.
none of this
Yeah,
is
at this
pleasant.
point, his only hope is the Whirl Kick having whiffed, and to be fair, it kind of did on this Shadow Sculptor. Too expensive to really get anything done with. So what I'm seeing is 6 damage that can go face.
Yeah, I think
Or
he's
short
trying to
of-
protect his Whirl Kick. I think that's why he's taking a moment here. Of course, if things do get dragged out, he might need that value. It doesn't look like he will, but you might as well play to that as a possibility.
Oh, hello, Altruist. That's got to be lethal now, right? Wait.
It's always lethal. Altruist is always lethal, Gio. I remember that from my Demon Hunter days. It's always lethal. You don't count, ever.
Yeah, Xiaobai clearly started this turn just hoping to Shadow Sculptor, which he knows what 2 cards are left in his deck, so I don't know if there was a guaranteed play that he was looking for, but quickly pivoting now that he sees this. Altruist, not enough board space to get all the procs off of it, but who really cares at this point? As long as he gets the taunt on board so that the Libram cannot go face, he is chilling.
I told you it's lethal.
Yeah, next turn.
I mean, I was wrong, but I told you it's lethal. So.
No, nobody said it had to be lethal this turn. Altruist
Yeah.
is very possibly lethal next turn.
The victory is yours.
It is. I was right all along, and it's 1-0 to Xiaobai, and looked good for it, really. Turner just not getting those Librams at the start of the game to get going, and never recovered. He tried, he hung in there, he tried to buy turn after turn, but never got the bailout he was hoping for.
The real pivotal turn there was in the middle where Turna decided, okay, I got a very slow start where I had to use Barov and both Librams of Justice pretty early. I am going to expend one Penflinger here and leave it out to die because I feel like I can race my opponent, Xiaobai, by going face with my weapons. And that game plan seemed very, very solid. He set up a strong Devout Pupil, which needed very specific cards to be generated by Xiaobai to either deal with or stall out. And if it were to be dealt with, a lot of the cases Xiaobai still didn't have like minion development to follow up. But Xiaobai got that perfect secret passage that ticked all the boxes, and from there I think it was really, really tough for Turna to come back.
Yeah, a long game in terms of number of turns. It wasn't a particularly long game of Hearthstone, but lots and lots going on considering, and this was just a turn where he got the missiles and the polymorph and played so fast as well, just to make sure no accidents occurred. He made a lot of decisions in almost 0 time that turn.
For Xiaobai, I also want to note how deliberately he made sure to never attack with this Candle Taker. Even in the last couple of turns where he almost had lethal, he ended up just evolving it, and it became an Altruist after all that patience. And it goes to show how much Xiaobai, well, knows the Paladin deck. He himself is bringing it and knows the difference that a single draw towards Liadrin or another Libram of Hope could make. And he valued denying that possibility from Turna more than his possibility of racing Turna. Just relied on the consistent generation you can get from Rogue turn after turn, and it paid off huge in the end.
Yeah, it made sense when you looked at the end result. Would it have made an extra, would it have lowered the clock? Maybe. But Turna was only 9 cards from the end of his deck. Like, every card you give him is another 11% of drawing the thing he needs to get him out of trouble. So worked out really well there. Very, very patient play.
And now we do have Turna queuing up his Token Druid, going to leave the Paladin aside for now in favor of this mega streamlined 2-ofs only list. No funny business with Goru, none of that guess the weight, but my favorite list with the double Jibber Jabbers in there, with the Lunar Solar Eclipse to get you some mana cheat on top of the double Lightning Blooms, and of course Savage Roar to get things finished up quickly.
Does this remind you of APAC GM, Gia? Every week, Token Druid, more Token Druids. It was Spell Druid then, of course, but you know.
Right, yeah, it's different, Lorinda. I mean, both of those have some capability of going Fungal Fortunes into Glowfly Swarm, into scam a win, but it did change at one point. It became like ramp into scam your guardian animals into a win. There's slightly more variation. And this Token Druid, what I love about it is you can scam from turn 1, depending on whether or not you draw your Jabberwockies.
How many different names have you got for this card?
I don't know.
I'm looking forward to the year going by, just being called a million different things.
Yep, I mean, it's great that you still know what I'm talking about, though.
I mean, I'm used to it at this point, Gio. I understand you. It's fine. But he's going to take on this Zoo deck. And the problem for Zoo, if the Druid gets the fast start, is Zoo, incredibly, as it's fast itself, might not be able to go wide enough, quick enough.
Yeah, the Zoo certainly has capability for exploding in early turns, but it, like you said, does not quite go wide enough to deal with Druid. And a lot of the times, if you're forced to take trades, and you often will take value trades wherever you can against Druid, the fact that Druid's arsenal is now kind of more diverse in the fact that, yes, you tend to make a lot of 2/2s, but you have buffs that go in the shape of 1/1, +1/+1 rather, with either Adorable Infestation or Power of the Wild. And also you have buffs that go +2/+1, like the Arbor Up, that it's really hard for your opponents to build a shape of board that they feel cannot be value traded. There's more diversity to how Druid can kind of buff up their board, which I think makes the decisions really difficult for Zoo.
I like this hand for Xiaobai. I don't like all of it, but I like a large percentage of it.
Mm-hmm. Double Flame Imps.
Yeah, into buff them, into hit you
Rigger.
really hard.
That sounds great, especially since More often than not, the Druid's game plan is to get early Glowfly Swarm. I would say getting early Jabberjays is really, really unlikely compared to that outcome. So in the world where Druid gets their average hand, killing them before they play Glowfly seems like a great game plan.
And that is the game plan. Not messing around with Spirit Jailers or any of that nonsense. You don't need health on your minions. Face doesn't do health damage. It takes health damage.
Ay. That's not the Eclipse you wanted to see. This looks like Hero Power. Hit face into Bloom Glowfly for what will on average be 4 Glowflies.
Turner knows another card's being kept, so he probably fears the worst here already, one way or another.
Uh-huh. Oh man. This kind of reminds me of the days of... What was that card? The 3/3 that if you go face with it, it adapts?
Oh, thanks for putting me on the spot. Yeah, that was the Adaptatron.
Or, yeah, okay. And
I have no idea.
Turna didn't draw his Jabberwockies, so everything is right in the world, I suppose. Yeah, it looks like it is just going to be the 4 Glowflies. That's the best Turna can do. 2 of them get value traded immediately, and 1 gets traded up into, but the alternative, I fear, is far too slow.
But it is only 23 all, so technically it is a tie right now. As
True.
Xiaobai has been hurting himself as fast as he's been hurting Turner. But yeah, clearly with this board presence and with Turner already going to have to use a lot of cards just to fight the board in any way, it's not looking great for him at the moment.
Yeah, it's rough for Turna because even if he does go for Glowfly and say Xiaobai does the bare minimum, which is trade, Turna's next turn is kind of dead. He goes up to 2 mana because of the overload, so even with Innervate, he doesn't necessarily have a good play. And that might be the thinking behind Turna going for this hero power. Maybe he wants to fit in Innervate Innervate Lightning Bloom and then Solar Eclipse Arbor up instead of the Glowfly. Just omit that entirely.
He's going to omit being in the game entirely in a moment. Xiaobai sensing the opportunity to just go all in here and set up next turn lethal.
Yeah,
I don't care about your Glowfly threats.
This was the only play from Xiaobai. It is beat the Druid before they play a single minion. And while Turna did try and set up for bigger Arbor ups instead of the Glowfly Swarm, it is simply not going to get there.
Yeah, no Adaptatron was going to get him out of trouble there. And just rolled over. I know which card you mean now. I just can't place it at all. And that's a 2-0 lead pretty rapidly. But there is the Paladin left, and I think we've all concluded that although Paladin isn't rubbish, it's the weak point in many of the decks in this tournament.
Right. However, Xiaobai does have 3 tries on it, the worst of which is the mirror. I mean, the least of which is a mirror. So I think in most circumstances he should be able to get there, but Turna, as quickly as the Druid got pummeled that game, this is a deck that can serve it back the other way sometimes, depending on the matchup. And I think against Paladin, Druid can very, very quickly take a turn for a win as well, depending on whether or not they get the early Glowfly. But if it's there, Paladin has limited answers.
And although Xiaobai is on a new team, he is an established player. He's had good results in Gold Series individual events in the past, in 2018, 2019. So although we're not particularly familiar with him, it's not like to sort of suddenly choke here or something. It's not uncharted territory for him. So it's just going to be down to the Paladin. And actually, I'm really impressed with how he's playing, the speed of his play, and just generally his decision making.
Yeah, the Zoo speed of play, I would say no real big decisions there. And he wasn't necessarily that fast on the other decks, but I would say that's doubly impressive, say, when he was on the Rogue, that he was fast enough to make sure he had time to deal with all the branching decisions, like, say, after Secret Passage, I need to have enough time to play all of my Discover cards. And he was also slow enough that he didn't miss any big macro game plan plays, and it's really tough to tread that line, especially on a different server. So I hope to see Xiaobai continue that level-headed play with Paladin, where there's also quite a few branching decisions you can make, especially with card draw and Penflinger in the equation.
Yeah, he is playing the Loot Hoarder variant, the more straightforward, as I see it, variant, I guess. Not being a massive fan of Braggart, but also I trust Derek's judgment, for better or worse. So, be interested to see Turna actually get a good Braggart off. But I haven't seen Braggart do much in this tournament in the few chances we've had to see it do something so far. So I'm happy with Loot Hoarder.
Yeah, it definitely feels like the Braggart is a win more card in certain situations. Say, ideally, like you'd love to play it when you have your Libram of Hope. You had a 2-mana 8/8. But if you already managed to stick a Libram of Hope, a lot of the time you're already winning. Braggart, in my experience when I play it in Paladin, it's often just another 2-drop card that is sometimes above average, but I find myself playing it as another 3/2 or say like even a 2/3 after your Aldor Attendant has gotten some value trades, something along those lines. So it is definitely an optimist's card, I will say.
At least at the moment, it's not a card that we should forget about anytime soon, because there may just come a day where that card is utterly busted, depending on what comes out in new sets and such like. It's just got that ring about it. 2 mana, 100. Like, there's probably a way to use that somehow.
Yeah, I mean, it was quickly deleted from Battlegrounds after the treasures were removed. And so we get to see if the Braggart can finally pull its weight and impress Lorinda. That is if Turna queues up his own Paladin, though. I am still looking as to what he actually is going to be playing first against the Libram Paladin from Xiaobai. And if I were to pick one of these classes that has the best chance, I'd actually favor the Druid. I think Paladin has very limited ways of dealing with wide boards, and the Druid, if you leave 2 or 3 minions up, they can easily just snowball out of control.
I mean, you've done very well in competitive play yourself. What do you do in these situations where it doesn't matter which order you queue them up in? Do you have a preference, or like try and win the first one, put the pressure on your opponent, or do you not care?
Well, I absolutely care about screen time. It's not so much about pressuring my opponent, but I also just don't want to have that feeling like, oh, I lost 0-3 in any match on stream, because there's always going to be some people out there who don't necessarily know all the intricacies of Hearthstone, and that 0-3 doesn't imply that you played badly, but
Right.
there'll be people who hear that, oh, they want 0-3, they must suck, and I want to avoid that feeling. So that completely illogical way of approaching Conquest is what I tend to do.
Well, that's why I asked the question there, because there is no correct way to do this. Crane made the decision at the end of day one that he wanted to queue the hardest one first so he could go to bed because he'd been awake for so. He didn't
fair.
give us that reason, but it looked like that was the reason. Like, queue the hardest one, get it over with. Some people continue to just randomize because they're comfortable. Some people maybe, have a favored deck. They just want to play that to settle themselves down. It's just interesting to me how you make a totally pointless decision. It's kind of how I live my life, by making pointless decisions.
I mean, if you can find joy in things as small as that, then you can be a very, very happy person. I can respect that, Lorinda. And I think it's definitely true that the time of day and how far you are into the tournament also affects that decision making. But whatever the logic or lack thereof that went into it, it will be the Druid first for Turna, and this time he has the Jibber Jabber.
And the coin and the cheap things.
Yes.
He is going to gibber all over this board, and there's going to be loads of jabbers to face down.
Yeah, gonna jibber all the jabbers. Although, in terms of the cheap things, I actually think it's just nature studies that you want to keep with the gibberling here. Lunar is a little bit slow. In fact, he's gonna toss that all together. Maybe look for a Power of the Wild to really capitalize on the gibberling, or if he is a high roller and major optimist, Lightning Bloom.
Eagle or card is the other question. What's he going to choose?
I want the Eagle.
Eagle seems good.
Yeah. This, to me, looks like a gibber curve into Eagle into just Savage Roar for the win.
Kill you on turn 3.
Yeah. Exactly. Caw.
Oh my. This is silly. Absolutely not caged in any kind of adamantium there. Just absolutely loose and running around.
Yeah, that cage was made of aluminium. Very easy to get through.
Aluminum.
I'm not even American, and you're British, and we're all saying the things that we're not meant to say in terms of pronunciation.
Well, we have to keep the chat on their toes, right, to some degree. But yeah, these eagles and gibberlings are taking over. That is the short version here. The long version is exactly the same as the short version.
Well, in any case, while we were, what is it you guys say, faffing about with
That's
all of
perfect.
these different ways of dealing with the board, Xiaobai had the Crab Rider at least to deal with the onslaught or stave off the bleeding a little bit, but the problem remains, right? At some point, the Savage Roar is going to be lethal. Even if Turna just hero powers this, sinks in for either 5 or 8, it's going to be extremely scary. And he says, I'm just going to cash in the first roar because I have the second one. Great. I mean, think you're fine giving Xiaobai the draw as well.
It's just Barov and Broom here, isn't it? There's just basically nothing else that stops him from winning either next turn, or maybe he takes time out to play a Soul and wins the turn after.
Yeah, there's like double pen flinger, and then they waste a spell to put them back in their hand. At this point, if Xiaobai has the pen flingers, I actually think he's meant to leave them on the board, and he doesn't even have them. Turna is debating whether this attack actually changes the breakpoints. If he thinks that all of his minions are sticking, then he shouldn't attack anyway because Savage Roar is still lethal. But there's a world where 1 or 2 minions get taken off by pen flinger, so I kind of like the attack.
I like the attack. 5's a lot. We can see that it would be technically incorrect, but 5 is a lot. I think I like this. And it has given him the second pen flinger.
All right. Well, I get to see now if my theory of leaving pen flingers better than bouncing them is better here, and Xiaobai agrees. And Savage Roar is 10 damage right now.
Yeah, if only he hadn't attacked with... it would be fine. It would be...
Oh, man.
Be in trouble.
Look at this gibberling into Bloom Soul of the Forest, though.
Yeah, and good luck dealing with that lot, Xiaobai. It's going to be some complicated decisions for Turner as to what to trade into, if anything. But I think it all ends in a really good result for him, whichever he chooses.
Yep. He probably trades 1 pen flinger minimum. 2, I think I would just go for the trade as well, because out of all of the fear of giving Xiaobai the card draws, him having more cards is scary if he has pen flingers, right? Outside of that, there's not many combinations of small cards that punish Turna. So now that he has basically eliminated the pen flinger problems by theoretically trading into them both, Xiaobai having an extra card, well, he's not got enough mana to play any significant Libram. So I think it is fine to take the attacks.
Yep, I do too. It's easier when we're sitting here visualizing it by looking at the hand and realizing that's a fairly normal hand. Much harder for Turner, of course, who's got to do that all in his head. And he thinks this just gets there. He doesn't see a combination of things that ruins it. And he might be right, you know, with all the Soul of the Forest tokens.
Sure. Yeah, the thinking behind not even trading the pen flingers is that if there's not enough mana flexibility in the first place for them to get damage done on the minions from their battle cry, it's essentially their battle cry is the same as them being left on the board to attack, if that makes any sense.
It does make sense.
Works out for Turna here.
Yep. Nicely worked out. It sort of goes back to what we were saying at the start of the previous turn. It probably didn't matter which thing he did here.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know that, so he has to put in the time.
Xiaobai doing his best to narrow the board, and he did have to go about it in that order. Otherwise, the pen flinger would have returned to hand before actually killing a minion. Savage Roar here is not lethal.
Not lethal again. So maybe
not a
it
big
did
problem.
matter what Turner did previously, and yeah.
Maybe. And it's really hard to think in retrospect, right? And Turna has to be a little bit scared now because Libram of Judgment is playable next turn. Probably not corrupted though, so it's actually one more window that he has before Libram of Hope becomes scary.
Oh, what do you do?
If you Savage Roar now and deal with this big taunt in the way, you actually end up with more health on the board, given that the Gibberlings trade.
Right, and that's what he's going with, but you are giving another card over to your opponent.
Yeah. I was thinking he might waste 1 damage in order to leave more attack on the board after the Gibberlings trade, but then he would leave the Eagle, which gives another draw. I don't think the draw matters after this turn though, so not sure if that's the way to approach it.
Obviously the Fungal, he's banking on that, just getting him even more buffs should he need them. I think that's a fair thing to do. That's what your deck's designed to do. So there's 2 more buffs, right? There's Power of the Wild and Arbor Up. There's things he can draw from the Fungal. Obviously Arbor Up wouldn't be playable from the Fungal, but...
And Xiaobai missing 1 minion to buff to make both Devout Pupils playable in the same turn. He's going to settle for the single Devout Pupil, fit in as many buff cards as he can now so that the second Pupil is as cheap as possible. Just that he needs a taunt to stay alive, so there's no other option.
Yep.
Well, he can hold the Blessing. I kind of like the idea of banking that mana now, so potentially next turn Devout Pupil plus Libram of Judgment is available.
Yeah, I can't see any world where Turner ever trades into this 2-2, or very few worlds where that was, because your opponent's on 2 health. So why would there ever be a world where your 2-2 gets attacked? So you can bank the mana now and not waste anything.
Oh man, Lightning Bloom allows Turna to play a lot of what he draws from this. Lunar Eclipse is lethal, right? Just 1 Gibberling in, and then 2-2 and Eclipse on the Pupil, and then Hero Power and Gibberling to the face. And he can do all that because he has Lightning Bloom.
Yep. Perfectly worked out there by both of you. And he gets 1 back in this semi-final. Reminder there. It's 2-1 in the semi-final. And the winner's going to get to play either Maverick or Trahizon in that final later. Right?
What's up with this emote, Lorinda? Is this the first piece of BM we've seen all tournament?
Perhaps it was. Yeah. A little bit of relief there for Turner to finally get a win. It's like, yeah, I got you on. Like, you're not going to 3-0 me. Maybe interesting.
Yeah, I wonder. I don't think Xiaobai did anything like wrong at the end there to warrant him saying that was a mistake, and Turna did find lethal in the end. So
I think Turner, like I mentioned before, Turner back in the day used to get quite nervous, and then he sorted it all out. Like for Oslo, he just steamrolled a field and was like, I spoke to him afterwards and said, Leo, didn't you used to get nervous? He's like, yeah, I used to get nervous, but no more. But now he's close to becoming a grandmaster. Like, this is a different level to winning, you know, 3,000 or 4,000 in Oslo, which is a lot of money, but this is a different level. This is a career-changing amount. Maybe just a little bit of that old sort of feistiness is coming back. Because he's looked on edge all the way through this.
Feistiness from Turna, but it was Xiaobai who did the emote.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was Turna. My bad.
Yeah.
Oh, then I don't know. Oh, he's mistaking himself, we're being told by Sottle here. He put the 1-1 in the wrong place.
Okay, that's true. He did have 1 mana at the end of it, so he could have played Devout Pupil and then the Blessing or Libram of Wisdom.
It's just extra health, right? Yeah.
Small thing. I don't think it would have made a difference in the end, but okay.
But my bad, but everything I said about Turner stands, by the way, apart from the fact he's not a BMer. He has looked on edge through this match more than I've seen him in 2 years. I stand by that, but I take back, I didn't realise got the wrong BM, and it wasn't BM. So you got the wrong BM too.
It's true.
Moving on.
I just couldn't think of what Xiaobai could have done differently. It was a small optimization that would not have mattered in the end, but I am not gonna lie, a little bit disappointed that there wasn't any shots fired there, because if there's any time to try and tilt your opponent, it is when they are 1 game away from losing their top 8 position.
Hardup did this in a DreamHack final. His opponent roped out on a Quest Rogue turn and didn't win the game because of it. And Parda was instantly in there with that was a mistake. But what we didn't know until after the final is he had been muted because his opponent knew he was going to be BMing him. And we were just seeing his point of
Command the
view.
light.
Well, all of that aside, we do end up in a Paladin mirror now. Xiaobai on the play with a one-drop. I say this with a disclaimer because I've seen some one-drops that are not up to par with other one-drops, such as Dust Devil, generated in this tournament.
Yeah, that card will have its day. One day. I'm not sure how. So let's see what he generates here. Turner, on the other hand, has got quite a lot of difficulty here because you really want to keep that Truth Seeker. It's such a good card, but it's so slow in the mirror.
I tend to keep Truth Seeker if I feel confident in the rest of my cards being able to fight back on the early board. And Turna can make a fair argument for that because he has Crab Rider. But when you're going second and you keep Crab Rider, a lot of the time you end up coining it out. So the coin with Truth Seeker becomes super iffy. But oh no, what a disaster draw for Turna.
Yeah, the eye roll there says it all, and I'm not surprised. That's not a criticism of him at all, because what is this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the mulligan there was between plain keeping Crab Rider, which is the pessimist's keep, quote unquote, or plain keeping Aldor Truth Seeker. And
Is
he
it
went for the
happening?
optimistic keep, and it did not happen.
I want to make this angry chicken really angry. I want to hand it and then just say, deal with my 3/3 Enrage minion.
That would have been pretty epic, but this is almost certainly better, right? You get to get the Young Priestess buffs rolling as soon as possible.
But
And
now, can we hand the chicken now, Gia? And just attack into the 1/1 and have a gigantic chicken?
I want to buff the Priestess. I'm sorry. The Priestess gets so much value the longer it sticks, right? And sometimes it makes the Tricken enrageable anyway. But Xiaobai agrees with you. All right. All right.
My, an angry, wise chicken. That just sounds like my worst nightmare. Look at it.
It's wise, it is angry, and it is a chicken.
Like, how do you kill this thing without trading everything into it? Because after the first thing trades in, it just becomes gigantic.
Yeah, I don't know, Lorinda. I think Turna's kind of dead.
Yeah, I think Turner thinks Turner's kind of dead as well. That disappointment starting to come across his face there.
It's death by chicken.
What an exciting
worst
way
of
to end the
deaths.
game.
Okay, two completely different perspectives here, I guess. Very, very informed about what we think about Angry Chicken as individuals on a moral level. But okay, reining it back in, Turna still has a top deck to get him back into this, and that is Lord Barov. Paired with the Broom, can reset pretty much any board. But in the meantime, while waiting for that to happen, all he has is a recruit, and that recruit enrages the chicken. And that's why he's not pressing the
Your
button.
go.
Oh no! The chicken! It's too powerful.
Just free ranging all over the place. Another chunk of damage, and now he can use the other hand if he wants to.
Hey Lorinda, why did the chicken cross the road?
To deal 3 to his opponent's face.
Reporting for duty.
Yep. What came first, the chicken or the death?
My goodness. This is just going to carry on forever, isn't it?
Sure feels like it. Okay, Turna has the first real play of his entire game, which is Coin Truth Seeker. Is it gonna win? Probably not. But is it a play? Yes.
I mean, you've kept this in your opening hand because it's a good card. I guess you have to play it.
Yeah.
But, wow.
Yeah, this could just be like an aggressive Broom from Xiaobai. Or rather, an even more aggressive Librum of Justice, sure.
Penflinger lethal there by procking his own chicken. That's coming shortly, right?
Yeah, assuming you get it off Pride and Broom. I don't think it's lethal just yet.
Ooh,
But
next turn.
yeah, we could see fling the chicken for lethal if it's not Barov here for Turna, and it is not. Are there one drops that get him out of this? I can't think of any.
No, I can't see how Turna gets out of this. I mean, actually, does generating a mage spell help him at all? Is there a mage spell that gets him out here?
I mean, I'm glad you thought of that out because yes, there is. Technically, Frost Nova can give him one more turn to try and draw into Barov. One Thief.
So one Thief needed?
Not it. Not it.
You won't get far.
Okay, this is a fair amount of rush, which will still lead to him dying in the end because the most he can take off the board is 4 damage. Sorry, 5 damage.
Move quickly.
But you can see the Penflinger in hand. Oh man, it's really rough for Turna to go out this way in what is a Paladin opening draw that's emblematic of why Paladin has been struggling so much in this tournament. It's just sometimes you don't hit the goods and sometimes your opponent hits the chicken.
Yep. And he's gonna Penfling the chicken here. And you know this doesn't.
Oh, he's not fun.
That's
he's gonna
no
fling
fun.
the face. Oh, okay. Guess he's gonna Libram the face. Oh man, I really feel for Turna. The frustration is palpable. It really is. And he fought hard in a lot of those other games. Particularly the Druid game, I feel was really complex to navigate. All things considered, he should be really proud of his tournament run, but the spotlight should absolutely be on Xiaobai here, who I feel has had some incredible play as well.
No, absolutely, and a Chinese player in the final for the second Masters Tour in a row. Gone are the days where we didn't particularly fear the Chinese players. Maybe we should have, but they've had a whole year to play on the sort of the systems that we use in the West to run these tournaments, and they've adapted incredibly quickly. And now they're just destroying everybody. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, this is what it feels.